Welcome to Empowerment Radio. My name is Dr. Friedemann, and I'm so glad that you decided to join me. Empowerment Radio is about giving you the insights, tools, and solutions to address some of the most challenging aspects of our daily lives. So sit back, relax, and empower yourself. Gary, before the break, we talked about that we. What is the we, and how do we nourish it?
Okay, that's a great question. I personally, in the book, I talk about the rights of the we. Those are my favorite sections in the book. What I found out is that, for a long time, couples therapy wasn't that effective. For many, many years, the average effectiveness rate was about 28%, maybe 35%. And then the relapse rate took it down quite a bit. Because therapy was tended to see two me's but a marriage or any partnership or any really intimate relationship there's a third entity that has to be there. It's the we. And I know that whenever I'm dealing with a couple, my real client isn't either one of them. It's actually the we between them. And if I can clean up the space so they can create a we, that relationship's going to work. As I've said on stage, show me a couple without a we and I'll show you a war.
Yes.
And it's the truth. So what it does, that we is that third level of energy between a couple that really creates closeness and safety and a unity. So they're not thinking just in terms of me. That'll kill a relationship. They are secure couples have this. When they think of their plans, they think of the other. They're planning ahead. They consult. They share influence. Right. They are tuned. A lot of couples, they kind of know when things went off, and they'll check in before the other one has to come back in. That's a we.
Is there a risk to lose yourself in the we and forget the me?
There is, if you don't have a secure right to separate and belong. That right is a Goldilocks. This one isn't lost. Like, you can lose a right. And the rights, I guess I should say who they are. There's a right to exist. You get that from feeling welcome with joy. Mm-hmm. There's a right to reach out for your needs and be able to take and receive. That's called, and that comes from feeling worthy and nourished. Cherished and protected, that feeling gives you a right to separate and belong. And then if you felt empowered with choice as a child, you have a right to create your own experience and a right to assert. And when you add them all together, you have a right to love and be loved. So this one, you can have a missing right to exist or a missing right to have your needs met. But this one is a Goldilocks. It's split. You either get one or the other. And so that we won't feel, you'll lose yourself if it can come two ways. Most times it's anxious who feel like they had a model of always being enmeshed and they never got a chance to truly develop a me. They will always be dependent on mom or dad to complete them because the mother and dad or caretaker never gave them a chance to separate. You take away that, so they have to be a complete me in somebody else. They never got a right to separate. Sure, they will. That will warp the we. And then the other person feels like they've got a twin that hanging on their arm. And that doesn't work. Sometimes when you hear of twin flames, if you get under the hood enough, you'll find out that one or the other had no right to separate. So if you've got a proper right, the we is really good. There's none of that going on.
But the right to separate basically just means that you have a right to go out, explore your own desires, and maybe also really go after your own, self-development and figuring out who you are, knowing that you come back and are still welcome, even if you have changed or even if you have, spent some time apart. Is that what the right to separate is about?
It is. You get to go out. You get to be able to do yourself. But when you go out and you do, the workshop, you do Tony Robbins or Joe Dispenza or whoever your guru is, right? then you bring it back, and you bring back that, and you're discussing, or you both go out and do it, and you do it in your own different way.
Mm.
I was talking to a couple earlier this week that went out and did a big workshop. They went, and then they brought it, and then they discussed, how can we implement that? But they did their own work, right? So it's that ability to go out and be in the attachment theory has a term for it. It's called secure base. Go out, but you have a home port in somebody else's heart, some place to refurbish yourself. When you go out, not all of self-actualization is without trials. You can go out and you can be doing your thing, and you say, honey, I'm starting this company, and the vice president quit. And you need some support that night because you weren't expecting that, right?
Right.
Yes, that's what a we is. And then you get to go out and you get to pursue your dreams, but somebody else also is supporting you. Very few of us have been self-actualized by ourselves. It's a lonely road to do it, and it doesn't work so well.
Well, it's more survival. I just talked to someone who has problems with her husband, and so as soon as there are problems, she has a right to separate and really wants to be away from him rather than trying to figure it out together. And so in some ways, these are often people that have been really, for most of their life, very independent, very self-reliant, really knowing, I just know that I have my back. I don't know about the others, but I know I have my back. And how do you really practice the right to belong when your husband drives you crazy?
That's an interesting one. When your husband drives you crazy. I've heard that quite a bit, right? I asked a woman on stage once who'd been married 55 years. She was on one of my workshops. And now, actually, I didn't. Somebody from a woman said, did you ever consider divorcing in 55 years? And she goes, oh, no, never divorcing. Murder, yes. It was a funny moment. But in the instance you were talking about, this person wants to separate because at some point in time they learned that the we was never going to attune. Better to do a preemptive move. Like, for instance, let's just get real here. I grew up with a genuinely borderline personality disorder mother, violent, to be honest with you, right? Now, if you're in the kitchen, and for a 4-year-old, being in the kitchen playing with your toys is the equivalent of the we, right? But if you get knocked against a wall enough times, you think it's better to play in my room. You don't want to be a part. You know that if you're part of that we, it's going to be misattuned. It's not going to be safe. So I tended to go and play with my toys and read books and make my own little world up in my bedroom.
Right.
That became a template for feeling safe. By all means, stay out of the we, right? I did not realize that when I was going through, trying to get into a doctoral program, doing my doctorate, that me being up in my study far too many hours was me doing the same safety protocols.
Mm.
And I didn't understand when my first wife said, I'm lonely. And I said, how can you be lonely? I'm in here. I'm in the house with you. That's a far cry from being with her, right? And feeling part of a we was very scary. Mm. When I finally did the deep work, I realized I was petrified of being, and it was not being safe or losing myself. My independence became my salvation, but that was the best deal available at 4. But it's not with a normal woman who just wants to welcome you into their heart and just needs, right? So what any of these old patterns at one time was the best deal. We don't make them wrong. We just want to love that part up and give it this type of safety that we can, and then tie that safety to what we want and what we need in a relationship. So we never make those parts wrong. There's nothing wrong with an anxious or avoidant. It kept you on the planet. It's just not serving you now. It's like having protocols, security protocols, but nobody gave you the memo when they expired. It's time to give some of them an expiration date.
Well, the problem is also that these protocols really distort reality. Just like, when we are in this place of, my husband drives me crazy, it's not necessarily that is really all of what the husband is, but we are then in those moments of those old survival patterns, simply only highlighting the things that don't feel safe or that feel somehow not trustworthy. And we are ignoring everything else that is actually positive and lovable about the other partner. So what do you do
Yes.
to get a more, let's say, realistic or neutral perspective on your partner again?
There's two levels to this, okay? One is realizing that if you have, say, a missing right to belong, because you don't have a right to belong, you're going to choose someone who's going to give you that experience back. We only have the experience, we have the rights back. So we will choose someone who will give us the very thing that we don't want. Now, this is where the rubbish. Yes, we chose him, and there's going to be some behavior there that is going to drive us crazy, because that's what we chose. If someone doesn't have a right to have their needs met, they'll find someone who's a taker. Someone who doesn't feel disempowered, they're going to find someone who dominates them, that's always telling them what to do, like that one lady you were talking about, right? Now, this is where it gets tricky. But because the brain is protecting, it starts filtering for that experience.
Yeah.
And then it sees what isn't there. And if that partner isn't good enough to give them, or they start cleaning their stuff up, the other person will prod them into giving them back that old missing right. And this trick sitting in my chair is to realize which one's going on and how to tactfully communicate. And then the other thing is to realize that all of this leads to core negative images of the other person, right? And that negative image that we have in our mind of our spouse is never the truth. It's always based on the worst possible moment, right? You see it in sometimes when you see snapshots of celebrities, and the paparazzi finds the absolute worst moment in a moment where they were all decked out of it, but they had some strange look in this microsecond, right? And that becomes the head of it, right? And then the whole nation sees the moment she went like that or whatever, right? But to realize that very few times are our spouses really that. And there's a tendency for that, our brain, the part of our brain that just makes associations, it doesn't do, it's a reptilian brain, it makes these core images, and it doesn't do comparison. It simply says, oh my gosh, there's an action, and he's just like my father. Oh my God. And then pretty soon they're just like, or he's just like my ex, and they became the same thing. That part can't say, he's 13% like my father. Or he's 7% like my ex. And soon the old feelings are there. And so it's important to realize that until we can clean up, release that past pain, it will dog us. It will invade. It will do nothing good for the relationship. We will either pick someone to give it to us, we will prod them to give it to us, or we will project it.
Well, one of the things that I find so empowering, also from the processes that I have learned, is how to actually learn more that your partner has your back. And I think, when we have these old beliefs of I have the right to separate but not to belong, then we don't necessarily trust our partner. We don't necessarily feel like, that this person has the back. So when we come back, we're going to talk about two things that I really find very helpful for everyone to boost their relationship by simply practicing these exercises. So stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hi, Dr. Friedemann here. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about fear and anxiety, here you'll find guided meditations, webinars, and interviews with some of the most renowned experts in the field of empowerment. Delve into the over 230 videos and more to come every week.